Ryan Kimura is the Executive Director for Quest IRA, Inc., a self-directed IRA third-party administrator with offices in Houston and Dallas, Texas, as well as Mason, Michigan. Ryan Kimura has an extensive background in real estate lending, from residential to commercial to hard money. He has been working with self-directed retirement accounts for years, initially as an investment consultant for a hard money lender, in which he was managing over $80 million worth of investor funds, over half of which were retirement funds, or he was working for Quest IRA, Inc., educating the investment community on the power of investing with tax-advantaged retirement funds. He also practices what he preaches, as he is actively investing in his own IRA, 401k, and health savings account. Currently, Quest IRA, Inc. administers over $500 million in client assets for over 4,500 clients nationally. With that, Ryan Kimura.
So, self-directed retirement accounts, I'm sure many of you seem like you're pretty experienced investors. How many have heard about self-directed IRAs, understand them? Maybe you just understand them? Okay. Typically, it's what I find is, in a room, you'll have people who have heard about self-directed IRAs. I heard you can buy real estate, I heard you can buy precious metals, and I don't really understand the concept or how, or why I haven't been told about this for the last 20, 30 years. Even though you've been able to purchase precious metals since 1975, when ERISA was created and IRAs were created. So quick disclaimer, we don't provide any tax, legal, or investment advice. We're just an administrator, a TPA. We just hold your IRA. We don't give you any investment strategies, any investment advice. Although if you come to some of our classes and events, we do a lot of free educational workshops. We try to provide people with investment strategies or options of what other clients are doing. A lot of clients we find call us and they say, hey Ryan, I've been looking at some alternative or non-traditional assets in my retirement account, but I don't know how to do it, and I'm not really sure what makes sense, whether it's precious metals or real estate or loans or oil and gas or some sort of private placement. So we can't tell you what to invest in, but we can kind of show you what other people have done, case studies, even returns that they've seen. We just don't tell you whether you should buy real estate or precious metals. We say, hey, you can do both. So who is Quest IRA? Who are we? We're one of the largest TPAs in the country. We're here locally, which is a benefit to you guys and also Texas Precious Metals clients. A lot of our competitors are national organizations and they're not local. So just like you may want to go see a precious metals bullion dealer, you can come to my office and you can see us and you can talk to us about IRAs in your investments and such. Again, we have no products to sell you, so we have no conflicts of interest of how you want to invest your money. As long as it's not two restrictions, which I'll go over here in a second, you can buy whatever it is that you want. We literally have people who buy 20 heads of cattle in their retirement account. Again, only two restrictions that you cannot do, which I'm going to go over here in a second. We have no minimums, right? We definitely don't have any maximums, and our whole staff has been in the self-directed IRA industry for 100+ years. We have attorneys that have been doing this for 20 years. They've also been investing in their retirement accounts into alternative assets, real estate, precious metals, etc. Our president, H. Quincy Long, national speaker on the topic of self-directed IRAs and real estate, precious metals, and loans inside of these accounts. And currently, right now, we have about $500 million under management. We just opened an office in Mason, Michigan. We'll have an office again in Seattle at the end of the year. Our branch or our company right now is growing at about, I would say, 7 to 9, maybe $10 million a month. That means that much money is just in our company, is moving out of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds and moving into some tangible investment. Right? We talked about, or we heard a lot of people talking about paper investments. People are gravitating again away from stocks, bonds, mutual funds into tangible assets. Real estate, land, precious metals, loans secured by real estate. Okay? So a little cartoon, we like to have fun at Quest, so this is a cartoon we always give. Right? You're sitting down with your financial advisor and he's studied all your investments, debts, and assets, and he's come up with a scenario where you can retire to that island resort and maintain your current lifestyle. Great, what's the scenario? You die 2 months after you retire. Well, a lot of Americans today are realizing, especially after 2008, I thought I was ready for retirement, but I'm not, right? I don't have the assets for retirement, right? So, and I don't believe in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds anymore, right? Wall Street's broken, right? Why haven't I heard about this? Why hasn't my financial advisor, my wealth manager, my attorney told me about self-directed IRAs and that there are other investment options? Well, one, they may have not known about it, but most advisors want your money invested in stocks, bonds, mutual funds because that's how they make money, right? And I think people here realize, and this is kind of preaching to the choir, right? But again, every decade, Wall Street's kind of had their hiccups, right? And most people's investment strategies, most Americans' investment strategy is buy, hold, and pray, because that's what my advisor tells me to do. Don't worry about the market fluctuations. Don't worry about that quarterly values. The statement, the value on your quarterly statement, right? People are realizing, okay, I can't do that. I have to take some activity in my own retirement account, right? The advisor I talk to twice a year may not have as much interest in my retirement as myself. I need to start looking at buying some tangible assets that I understand and I believe in. Right? Another cartoon, right? Your financial advisor, right? Chucky Schwab, everybody knows Chucky Schwab. You're the little kitty cat. Again, he wants to keep you inside the box of stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Nothing against that financial advisor. He needs to sell that stuff to put food on his table. And if he works for some larger companies, Merrill Lynch, for example, he probably couldn't even suggest it to his clients because it would be selling off assets he may get let go. Right? There are a lot of other independent boutique registered investment advisors that can offer both stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, and some tangible investments. And as David was saying, he was saying that interesting how silver is considered scrap, or a bad investment. It's interesting how Wall Street looks at all investments inside of self-directed IRAs as alternative or non-traditional. Well, alternative to what? Stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Non-traditional because stocks, bonds, and mutual funds are a traditional investment in IRAs. Right? Again, kind of a marketing ploy or tool or with words on how alternative investments may not be as good or as safe. But at Quest, we don't want you to think outside the box. We just want you to realize the investment box is much larger than most people think. Only 2 restrictions, going to get into them here in a second. Well, what is a self-directed IRA? We really want to make clear that there's no such thing as a self-directed IRA. There's only such things as IRAs. And IRAs are all the same contributions, same penalties, same distribution, same everything. The only difference is in the account agreement, when I set up an account at a traditional custodian, it says you can invest in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds in the agreement. Right? In our account agreement, it says you can invest in anything the IRS allows. Right? So we just want to make clear there's no such thing as a precious metals IRA. There's no such thing as a real estate IRA. There's no such thing as a self-directed IRA. There's only IRAs out there. Our industry just came up with this term just to show that we allow for other assets than the typical traditional custodians out there. Benefits of self-directed IRAs is being able to take control of your retirement account. If you invest in a company stock, Google, Microsoft, etc., you really have no control over that company, right? If I buy a piece of land, or if I buy a rental property, or I buy precious metals, I have control over that. Right? Diversification. True diversification because people thought they were diversified in 2008, right? But my diversification strategy for my financial advisor happened to be Enron, Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, Tyco, WorldCom. I can go on and on and on and on about all these companies that are no longer around, which is why people are now diversifying into tangible assets like precious metals, tangible assets like real estate, tangible assets like land, right? So true diversification with inside of retirement accounts. Tax savings. We had the capital gains conversation, right? No such thing as capital gains inside of retirement accounts. I get to save all that. With a Roth IRA, it's tax-free for the rest of my life, over 59 and a half. And as long as a Roth IRA has been open for 5 years. Tax-free distributions for myself and all my beneficiaries. Powerful, very, very, very powerful, right? And social investing, right? Most people have had mutual funds, right, or have mutual funds. but they don't really ever know what the mutual fund is invested in. Interestingly enough, does anybody have mutual funds in here? What's the mutual fund invested in?
Precious metals.
Okay, obviously a precious metals room. In most presentations or most classes I give, I always ask someone, because they have a 401k and it's the 10 mutual funds that they pick, and I ask them, so what's that mutual fund invested in? It's, oh, it's the diversified. No, okay, what is it diversified into? Oh, it's the Hartford Life Diversified Fund. Diversified into what? Oh, I think technology companies. Well, what technology companies? I have no idea. Sooner or later, you get to a penguin. I don't know, right? So we would talk about using your money and investing into something that you may understand, like a real estate investment or precious metals or something like that. With a real estate investment, I may be buying up excess inventory. I may be providing home ownership or shelter for someone. I'm taking the eyesore out of that community, right? If I'm rehabbing that property, I'm even providing jobs because I need subcontractors to rehab that property. So we would say, take your money out of mutual funds, out of stocks, out of bonds, and invest in something that may benefit your community in some way. And then investing what you know best. Obviously, this room knows a lot about precious metals, right? And you've probably been successful with precious metals outside of your retirement account. So use your most tax-advantaged money to buy precious metals. We have, like I was saying, livestock traders who buy 20 heads of cattle at a time because that's how they make money, right? They know how to turn a commodity into cash. So why not do that with my most tax-advantaged dollars? So we would say invest in what you know best, whatever that may be. Types of accounts that can be self-directed. So this is where most Americans hold their wealth, traditional IRAs, including any 401k rollovers. So now you're seeing a lot of commercials from the larger traditional custodians of the world. Don't leave your retirement account at your company. Move it over to us. Right? You can move it over into precious metals. Roth IRA. Again, everybody wants the Roth IRA because it grows. It grows tax-free and it comes out tax-free for qualified distributions. Huge conversion opportunity this year. I think most people run away from the conversion because they see the tax burden, right? But they don't see what potential profits I can have with this tax-free account over my lifetime. Right? So don't run away from the tax burden or the conversion. Look at what potentially could this tax-free account be valued at when I'm over 59 and a half and I'm really ready to take distributions tax-free for the rest of my life. Employer plans can be self-directed as well. So I'll use self-employed individuals. If you have a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, the individual 401k, actually any 401k can be self-directed. Texas Instruments can self-direct their 401k and allow their employees to buy precious metals or real estate. They don't, a little too closely tied to Wall Street, but again, 401ks can be self-directed, and as of 2006, the Roth 401k can be self-directed as well. Two other specialty plans most people don't think about, but the Coverdell Education Savings Account can be self-directed, and then the HSA, most powerful account we administer, tax deductible, grows tax-free, comes out tax-free for qualified medical expenses. Not one of those use it or lose it plans where you have to use all the money at the end of 12 months. No, you can roll it over to the next month, the next year, the next year, the next year. Amazing account. So all those accounts can be self-directed. There are a few restrictions that I want to go over, things that you really can't do. People, investment, and transaction restrictions. Or people, transaction, and investment restrictions. People are you. Okay, so this is why you can't physically hold the gold yourself, or the precious metals, or the coins yourself. They have to be stored at a depository, right? So the IRS needs to know that the IRA is holding these assets and they're not being held by yours because they are not yours, they're Mr. IRAs. Okay, and until you pay the taxes or until you distribute this asset to yourself, it's not yours personally, we have to keep it in the name of the trust, which is an individual retirement account. That's why we need a depository. Typically, it's the Delaware depository that we see, First State Bank that we see, but really it's any depository that's willing to hold your precious metals for you. So what we tell people is think of your IRA as another person, as another entity. Think of it as Mr. IRA or Mrs. IRA, right? So when Mr. or Mrs. IRA wants to purchase something, they have to stand on their own. Should they want to buy a house, they have to pay for all the taxes, insurance, etc. They want to buy precious metals, the IRA, Mr. IRA has to pay for all the depository cost, all the administrative fees, etc. Okay? So again, we can't enter into transactions with our own IRA, right? Nor any lineal ascendants and descendants. Okay, so parents, children, spouse, and any of my children's spouses, you can't deal with their IRAs, okay? Prohibited transaction, and any companies that they own. So you can't take an IRA and invest it into an LLC or a limited partnership that you own, okay? In the tax code, actually, it says no more than 50% ownership, but there's been plenty of court cases where investors have owned 20 or 30% of a corporation and they've lost. It's called a prohibited transaction. 2 investment restrictions. Okay, no life insurance contracts. I have no idea why. Maybe because I can't get a life insurance contract on my aunt and then hire a hitman for $5,000 and have the life insurance policy pay off. But I don't know why life insurance contracts. No collectibles. They define collectibles as artwork, rug or antique, metal or gem, stamp or coin, or my personal favorite, no alcoholic beverage collections. But if you find a wine or whiskey collection and you need help drinking it, I'll give you my business card. They obviously make some exceptions for US minted coins, precious metals, right? Silver, platinum, palladium, bullion, which most people in this room invest in, right? So what can you invest in other than precious metals? Really anything except for life insurance or collectibles. But we would say, well, what are you knowledgeable about? Right? What do you understand as investments? That's what you should invest in. So personally, I'm a lender. I like loaning my money out of my IRA and securing it by an asset, just like maybe a bank would do, right? Although my interest rates are much higher than you can get at a bank. That's my investment strategy because my whole life has been lending, so that's what I understand. Right? Tarek may be precious metals, David may be silver, but this is what they understand. So invest in these assets in your IRA, not just some stocks, bond, or mutual fund. Other investment choices could be real estate, including foreign property. Right? We've funded a piece of farmland in Uruguay, a condo in Hong Kong, so it doesn't have to be domestic real estate. Real estate notes, so this is what I would do. Loan my money and secure it by a tangible asset, like a piece of real estate, single-family residence, multi-family building, a piece of land, something like that. They could be secured by some other asset. I've seen someone say, hey, I'm going to buy this farming equipment and lease it to a farmer for a specific rate. Right? They could be unsecured notes if you're really trusting or crazy, right? Because if that person or that company goes away, so does your loan. We see investments in LLCs, limited partnerships that hold all sorts of assets, precious metals, real estate, oil and gas, private placements, private stock. Again, precious metals, which we're all here for. You know, really and a whole lot more. Oil and gas and a whole lot more. There's only 2 restrictions again. Just want to reiterate, no life insurance, no collectibles. People also think that setting up a self-directed IRA is very complicated. I've never heard about this. Do I need all these entities? No, we just want to show you, very simple. Just like setting up an IRA at any other traditional custodian, right? We open up a self-directed IRA by filling out an application, which is your name, your address, your beneficiaries, should you pass away, and where's the money coming from, right? We move the money into the account, takes about 7 to 10 business days. Right, takes us 24 to 48 hours to effect a precious metals purchase, right? And then I know Texas Metals is very quick. We've done a couple of clients for them. You know, the shipment of the precious metals to the depository very fast, very quick. This is where we can't help you. This is where Texas Precious Metals, this is where David Morgan come into play. Locate an investment. We can't find that investment for you. We're just your third-party administrator that will allow you to buy whatever it is that you want that's not life insurance or collectibles. We have some forms, right? So just like you want to buy stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, we have to have some forms that you fill out, right? So again, we need to know what you want to buy. We fill out those forms, you send it to us, and within 24 to 48 hours now we've purchased this precious metals, and now we're just waiting on receipt or confirmation from the depository that the precious metals have been received. Right? Vesting. So this is the proper vesting of the purchaser of the precious metals, the purchaser of the piece of real estate, right? Quest IRA, which is us, for the benefit of FBO, client name, IRA, and account number. So we just want to make clear, again, everything is purchased and invested in the name of your IRA, not your name personally. And again, all the expenses stay within the IRA. So when you ever sell your precious metals, all those gains go back into that tax deferred or that tax-free account. 5 key points to remember after my quick conversation, my quick presentation. IRAs can hold all types of securities, right? All types of investments, excuse me, not just securities, not just stocks, bonds, mutual funds, right? Anything except for life insurance or collectibles. Partnerships or split ownerships are allowed, right? So you can invest in entities, 20, 30, 40, 50% ownership. You don't have to be 100% owner in something. You can also partner accounts together, right? So although I can't deal with my wife's IRA, can we partner my wife's IRA and partner my IRA together to buy a $100,000 asset? Yes, definitely. IRAs and other Quest accounts grow tax-deferred or tax-free. Obviously, just remember that. That's what all retirement accounts are used for, right? And all plans qualify and partial transfers are allowed. So if you want to invest in stocks, bonds, or mutual funds, keep that at your traditional custodian. Just transfer over just enough to get your precious metals purchase done, or your real estate purchase done, or your loan done, right? Partial transfers are allowed. And then don't wait. Rescue your retirement account today. Right? If you think Wall Street's here to take care of your retirement account, obviously everyone in here doesn't think that, right? But help out some of your friends in your social network understand that. Wall Street's there to make money for Wall Street. They need to take control of their own retirement account, buy some tangible assets that won't evaporate like some of these companies have over the past 10 years. Questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's okay, go ahead.
My first one's a two-part question. A lot of people in the precious metal space believe that you should just cash in your IRA today, take your distribution, take your penalty, given that they believe that your IRA funds are going to be higher tax. They're going to try to sell you some government mandatory bond at some coupon rate to control the funds. Obviously, there's, what, $15 trillion in IRAs?
Yeah.
Our debt's pretty close to that, so it would be natural that they try to get their hands on it. So a lot of people believe you should just cash it in and take the penalty today. What's your opinion on that?
That's kind of like the video we just saw, right? Doomsday scenario, doomsday video. You can't really plan for that. I can only plan for what is on the books today. And if I converted from a tax-deferred account to a tax-free account for the Roth IRA, I don't have to pay taxes ever again. Would they even nationalize that Roth IRA maybe at some point in time? Maybe.
I don't think you'll see a nationalization. People have too many guns in this country to do that.
Right.
But what they will do, if they have complete control and power to do, is to tax it or make it very onerous on you to, or preferred, or even give you a carrot.
Well,
hey,
yeah.
invest in these government bonds and get this 12%, and you're going to be getting it back. You know.
Yeah, and I've heard that too. Who's
Right.
to say that they can't double tax us even on the Roth IRA on the backside?
Right.
You know, it's very possible. The government really can do whatever they want. I can only help and advise you or help plan for what I have on the books today and what we can do with retirement accounts today.
Okay, I don't disagree. So let's say that's the scenario and you decide not to cash it in.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're gonna take your funds, you put it in with you guys
Right.
as the administrator.
Yes.
I'm gonna form an LLC.
Okay.
You're gonna own the shares in the LLC.
Okay.
Right. I'm gonna be the manager of that LLC.
Can't do that.
I can't be the manager.
No.
Why?
Because the tax code says we can't.
What section of the tax code tells you that?
It's
Because the private letter rulings do not say that, specifically on the trust accounts. You can, they've held, I mean, they've looked at these scenarios, and you can, they can hold shares
Yeah, it's like 43.
as an asset.
It's like 4395C or something. It says you can't invest into a company you're more than 50% owner of. There are companies out there that will set up single member LLCs, you know, these checkbook control LLCs out there, right? And again, there's no advisory letter or opinion letter that says you can do that. It's, do you want to take on the risk, right? So
there seems to be an issue. Some people say you can do it, some people say you can't.
Yeah, because there's nothing in the tax code, or the IRS hasn't come out, or the Department of Labor hasn't come out and said you can or cannot do these structures. They know that they're being created, but they haven't had any opinion on them yet, which is causing our industry definitely some unneeded stress, because there's attorneys that say, no, this structure is completely okay, and then there's other attorneys that take the conservative approach and say, no, I would never.
Well, I'm an accountant and an attorney, and I've read your stuff on your website, and with all respect to Richard, I completely disagree with his analysis.
Okay.
I mean, it's very elementary.
Right.
His analysis of the tax code and of the private letter rulings, I think is just, to be honest with you, I think it's flat wrong.
Right.
And so I believe that you can actually do this. How far you want to push that envelope is a question, i.e., the people who want to have precious metals and they don't want to take the tax hit, their concern is what? I don't want my metals in Delaware, Nevada, or Utah. I want them where I can control. Well, and maybe in my possession or someplace locally with
some depository bank locally.
Not a bank, some depository institution of some kind that I have a key to open and get.
Right.
I may keep them at David's house.
Right. Some safe.
But if I'm the manager and the IRA holds those shares, okay, and I as the manager invest in real estate or invest in precious metals, I see no prohibition against that. And if the government's going to come, the IRS is going to come get you for that, they're going to come get you for a lot of other things. But there is no prohibition as long as you're acting in that fiduciary capacity as the manager of that LLC, and you're not taking possession and doing something with that other than storing it. I see no prohibition, and I challenge anybody to find that and point it out specifically, because it's not in the tax code, it's not in the definitions, it's not in the private letter rulings. So
and that's why we would say there's nothing out there that says you can or can't do that. You know, we would say on the conservative approach, if you have a non-disqualified person that can act as the managing member or the trustee of that entity, do that instead of having it be yourself. And then there's no question, right? So we would take the conservative approach and say, hey, if you can find a non-disqualified person like David here to be the managing member, and you store the precious metals that the LLC purchased in his safe.
Well, there's two parts to that. One is the manager, and the second part is the custodian. So if you're saying he needs to be the manager, I disagree that that is a decent analysis. If you want him to be the custodian, that helps you. Tell me how many...
No, because we're the custodian of the investment into the LLC.
You're the custodian of the shares, but you're not the custodian of the assets.
That's correct.
The LLC is the holder of those assets. If that LLC wants to go hire a custodian to hold them, you can I can set up a custodial agreement with my friend David here.
Sure.
Arm's length transaction. I have no relation to him. He's not related.
Correct.
And he can hold my metals.
Exactly.
And if the IRS comes knocking on my door, let's go.
Exactly.
You can't, your code, there's nothing in that code that prohibits that transaction. What I'm saying is there's an answer for people who want to hold the metals, but not have the tax implications, and I've seen no one do a decent analysis of it.
Yeah, sure. Again, that scenario would be okay. Again, with us, other than you being the managing member of that LLC. Outside of that, that scenario would be fine with us.
Guys, let's grab a quick question from Jason, and then we'll move on to the break after that.
Yeah, you're talking about self-directed 401ks, which I'm not all that familiar with. Is that something, so you use TXI as an example, is that something TXI would have to implement?
Definitely.
And do you work with, so let's say TXI has their custodian is Schwab, and they, I think Schwab has a bucket where you can do a self-directed IRA in stocks only.
Right.
Can you work with Schwab, or does someone have to come in, TXI, and work?
More than likely, you would have to move your account 401k from Schwab to a boutique administrator that would allow you to set up an account with Schwab to allow your employees to buy stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, but also open an account with a company like Quest to hold the precious metals assets. So it would just be literally moving it to a different administrator.
So there's not any additional restrictions besides the ART or the two things in self-directed 401k versus self-directed IRA? There's not any additional restrictions on it?
No.
Okay,
No,
those
it's just,
2 points.
Yeah, again, there's 401ks out there. Self-directed for us just means you can buy precious metals. Self-directed, because they came up with that term because they were losing so many clients, to Charles Schwab means, you can self-direct it to any stock, bond, or mutual fund. So it's just fine moving it to an administrator that would allow for the alternative assets like precious metals. And I have contacts if you need.
Awesome.
Let's go ahead and
thanks.
Right there. Thank you so much, Ryan Kimura.
TXI as an example. Is that something TXI would have to implement?
Definitely.
Do you work with, so let's say TXI has, their custodian is Schwab, and they, I think Schwab has a, you know, a bucket where you can do a self-directed IRA in stocks only.
Right.
Which can you work with Schwab, or does someone have to come in, TXI, and work?
More than likely, you would have to move your account for